Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. The air was heavy with morning fog as I sipped my coffee, staring out the window of our small, neatly kept kitchen. The routines of the past few years seemed etched into the very walls of this place, a silent testament to a life I believed was built on mutual trust. But today, the familiar had turned foreign, the trust had started to crumble. Jasmine had been acting oddly, more withdrawn than usual, and her eyes darted away too quickly during our conversations. It wasn't just the distance growing between us that bothered me, it was the recurring pattern that had struck me as odd. "I'm pregnant," she had whispered 6 months ago, her voice a mix of fear and urgency. It was unexpected, and frankly, we weren't planning on children yet. I gave her money for the abortion, believing it was what we both wanted. When the same situation unfolded 6 months later, my confusion grew, but I quelled it with logic, or perhaps it was denial. However, when she told me the same tale for the third time just this morning, something inside me snapped. It wasn't concern that painted her features, it was an almost imperceptible flicker of guilt. That's when I decided I needed to know the truth. So, I told her I had to leave early for a meeting, but instead, I parked a block away and waited. The minutes stretched endlessly before her figure emerged, clutching her purse to her side as she glanced nervously around. She didn't head towards the clinic. Instead, she walked briskly in the opposite direction. Curiosity morphed into suspicion, and I followed, keeping a safe distance. The city was waking up, indifferent to the personal drama unfolding on its streets. Jasmine met a man at the corner of a busy street, far from any medical facility. He was tall, with an ease to his demeanor that contrasted sharply with Jasmine's tense posture. They exchanged a few words, and she handed him a wad of cash, which he pocketed with a smile before leading her towards the old hotel that catered to fleeting visitors. Every step they took together was a sledgehammer to the remnants of my trust. I followed them into the hotel, my heart pounding a furious rhythm against my ribs. They didn't notice me. They were too wrapped up in their own deceitful bubble. Hiding behind a newspaper, I watched as they approached the reception, his arms stealthily brushing against hers. It was a display of familiarity, of intimacy. They were given a key and disappeared down the hallway, leaving me in a state of shock. Betrayal, raw and sharp, cut through me. Jasmine hadn't just lied about the pregnancies, she had fabricated them as a ploy to funnel money for her escapades. My mind raced as I thought about all the possibilities, all the lies, the deceit, and the manipulation. The woman I married, the woman I trusted, had been using me. The seeds of revenge started to sprout within my thoughts. She believed she could play me for a fool, use me as a means to fund her infidelities. But I wouldn't let this deceit go unanswered. I would expose her, ensure she lost everything she took for granted. The trust, the love, the life we built together, she would see it all crumble as I had in that moment of revelation. Leaving the hotel, the crisp morning air felt like a slap to my face, awakening me to my new reality. It was time to act, to take back control. Jasmine's deception would be her undoing, and I was just getting started. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for war. The sound of my own heartbeat thudded loudly in my ears as I drove back home, each minute stretching into an eternity. My mind whirled with the images of Jasmine and that man disappearing into the hotel room, her lies now as clear as the daylight that had begun to pierce the morning fog. I needed answers, and I needed them now. As I approached our house, the sight of Jasmine's car in the driveway ignited a fresh wave of anger. She was home, likely thinking her deceit had gone unnoticed yet another day. I parked with a screech, my emotions teetering on the edge of control. I stormed into the house, slamming the door behind me, the sound echoing like a shot. Jasmine was in the kitchen, a cup of coffee in hand, dressed in her casual homewear that now seemed like a costume of innocence. "Jasmine," I said, my voice icy calm, belying the storm raging inside me. She turned, a practiced smile on her lips, which faltered slightly at my expression. "Hey, you're home early. Everything all right?" she asked, setting her coffee down, a hint of nervousness creeping into her voice. No, everything is not all right, I spat, closing the distance between us. Where were you this morning? Confusion flashed across her face. I went to the clinic, like I told you. Why? I laughed, a short, humorless sound. Cut the act, Jasmine. I followed you today. You didn't go to the clinic. You met a man, gave him money, and went to a hotel. My voice rose with each accusation, my finger jabbing in the air toward her. Her face paled, her lips parting slightly as if to catch her breath. I can explain, she stuttered, her eyes darting around, looking for an escape that wasn't there. Explain. I saw you with my own eyes. How many times, Jasmine? How many times have you lied and used me? I demanded, my voice thunderous in the quiet of our kitchen. Jasmine's shoulders slumped, her usual composure crumbling. It's not what you think, Save it. I cut her off, not willing to be manipulated by any more of her lies. I trusted you. I gave you everything, and you've been lying to me all this time. Silence hung between us, heavy and suffocating. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears, but I was beyond caring. What do you want from me? She whispered, her voice breaking. I want the truth. All of it. And then I want you out of my life, I said, each word laced with finality. Jasmine nodded, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Okay, I'll tell you everything. But please, understand, it was never about not loving you. Her words were a bitter pill, mocking the love I thought we shared. She started to explain, her voice a mixture of defiance and regret. She told me about the financial troubles she'd hidden from me, her fear of losing our lifestyle, and how her desperation led her to another man who promised easy solutions in exchange for secrecy and more. As she confessed, the pieces of the past months fell into place, a mosaic of betrayal that no amount of her tears could wash away. I listened, a cold detachment settling over me. When she finished, the finality of our marriage echoed in the quiet sobbing that filled the room. I'll be gone by tonight, she finally said, a whisper lost in the distance that had grown between us. Good. My reply was sharp, a cleaving between our past and my future. As she walked away to pack her things, the weight of her betrayal lingered, but so did a resolve. Jasmine's deception would mark the beginning of her downfall. My next steps were clear, and I was ready to ensure that justice, as cold and merciless as it felt now, would be served. The house felt eerily silent after Jasmine left, her presence eradicated as if she'd never existed here with me. The walls that once echoed with laughter now stood as grim sentinels to my shattered trust. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a plan began to take shape, a plan for retribution and justice. First, I needed undeniable proof of her deceit to secure a favorable divorce settlement and to expose her lies to anyone who might still be deceived by her facade. I started with her computer, the device that she guarded so jealously, claiming it was just for her personal projects. With a mix of dread and determination, I powered it up, her password no longer a secret from the sticky note I found tucked in her drawer. As the desktop came to life, I was greeted with a slew of documents and photos. Clicking through them, I found receipts for luxurious items that she claimed were gifts from me, emails from the man she met at the hotel, and more disturbingly, a series of messages that detailed their arrangement and her manipulation to siphon money from our accounts. Photographing everything with my phone, I felt a cold satisfaction knowing that I was building a case that no lawyer could dispute. Each click of the camera was a nail in the coffin of the life she thought she could return to. But evidence from her computer wasn't enough. I needed something more concrete, something irrefutable. Recalling the hotel they had visited, I decided to pay a visit myself. As I approached the front desk, feigning calm, I inquired about the room Jasmine and her companion had used. Hello, I believe my wife stayed here recently, and I need to verify it for some personal reasons, I explained, trying to sound casual. The clerk, a young man with a wary look, hesitated. "I'm not sure I can disclose guest information, sir," he responded, his voice tinged with suspicion. I slid a photo of Jasmine across the counter. "It's important. She's my wife, and it's a matter of legal concern." His eyes darted between the photo and me, then, with a resigned sigh, he turned to his computer. Moments later, he nodded, confirming my worst fears. "Yes, she stayed here," he admitted, handing back the photo. "Could you print out the record of her stay?" "It's crucial for a legal matter," I pressed, my heart pounding with the rush of impending vindication. With a reluctant nod, he printed the document, and I tucked it safely into my folder filled with evidence of her betrayal. Armed with digital and physical proof, I felt empowered, yet the emotional toll was heavier than I had anticipated. My next step was clear: confront her one last time with everything laid bare before taking it to a lawyer. I needed her to know that she hadn't just broken our vows, she had ignited a battle she couldn't hope to win. Driving back home, the weight of the impending confrontation loomed over me. I rehearsed every word I would say to her, every piece of evidence I would present. Jasmine needed to see the consequences of her actions, not just through legal channels but through the realization of the emotional wreckage she had caused. That night, under the harsh light of our dining room, I laid out the evidence before her. Her face drained of color as she absorbed the extent of her exposure. "Jasmine, this is everything: emails, photos, hotel records. It's over. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm taking everything," I declared, my voice steady but my hands trembling slightly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She knew there was no escaping the truth. "You could have just asked for a divorce," I added, the pain surfacing despite my anger. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but it was too late for apologies. I left her there, amidst the ruins of her deceit. As I stepped into the cool night air, the burden of betrayal slightly lighter on my shoulders, my path to retribution only just beginning. The days following my confrontation with Jasmine were filled with a numbing sense of inevitability. The divorce proceedings were set in motion, and with the mountain of evidence I had gathered, there was little room for Jasmine to maneuver. Yet, a deeper, darker part of me yearned for a more visceral form of closure. As the court date approached, I crafted a plan that went beyond legal retribution. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal, not just in her pockets but in her soul. It was time for a more personal confrontation, one that would sever our ties forever. On the eve of our final court session, I invited Jasmine to meet at our once favorite cafe, a place that held memories of better times, now tainted by her deceit. She agreed, perhaps hoping for a chance at reconciliation, or maybe to plead for a more favorable settlement. But I had no such resolutions in mind. As I sat waiting, the cafe buzzed with the idle chatter of strangers, oblivious to the storm brewing at my table. Jasmine arrived, looking weary and apprehensive. She sat down, her eyes not meeting mine. "Thank you for coming," I began, my voice calm but cold. "I wanted to give you one last chance to explain yourself before we finalize everything tomorrow." Jasmine sighed, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't know what to say anymore, except I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't even begin to cover what you did, Jasmine," I replied sharply. "But today, I want you to understand the full extent of your actions." From my bag, I pulled out a series of photographs, not just of her and her lover, but also of her at various locations, which she had lied about. I laid them out one by one in front of her. "What is this?" she asked, confusion and fear creeping into her voice. "This is every lie you told, every moment you thought you were fooling me," I said. "But there's more. I have made sure that everyone knows the kind of person you are." Her eyes widened in panic. "What do you mean?" "I've sent copies of these to your friends, your family, and your lover's wife. Everyone deserves to know the truth about who they are dealing with." Jasmine's face crumbled as she absorbed the implications. "You didn't," she whispered, her voice breaking. I did. And that's not all. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a menacing whisper. I have also reported your financial misdeeds to the authorities. Enjoy dealing with that investigation. Jasmine recoiled, her face a mask of shock and betrayal. You've ruined me, she gasped. You ruined yourself, Jasmine. I just shed light on it, I retorted with finality. Standing up, I left her there, surrounded by the debris of her shattered secrets, her sobs filling the space as I walked away. The cold satisfaction of revenge settled over me. This was the closure I needed, brutal and absolute. As I stepped outside, the brisk air felt like a cleanse from the years of deceit. I walked away from the cafe, from Jasmine, and from the past. In that moment, I was free from the chains of betrayal, ready to rebuild on my own terms, the echoes of her despair a distant, fading note in the symphony of my new beginning.